Hello and Chodesh Tov to everyone. So this week's parasha is Korach, which I know it can be challenging for a lot of us to sort of look at Korach and wonder what was it that happened with Korach that was so awful, or that he merited such a severe punishment. And I wanted to bring an interesting interpretation of this parasha from the Shem Mishmua. So anyone who was with us the last time I taught, this is actually from exactly the same commentary, his commentary on Truma. And he talks about Korach and Moshe as representing sort of two archetypes, right? He sees Korach as really representing this kind of pure emotional fervor, right? Pure devotion. He talks about him having passion and awe and enthusiasm, and a real desire to serve God, but also that he is lacking kind of an insight and grounding, that he's too much driven by his passion and impulse. He says that "Umizeh ba lechalok al Moshe v'niyeh bo ma sheniyeh." So he says, and like that, with this passion, Korach came to confront or debate Moshe, and whatever would come of it would come of it. He sort of isn't really thinking about the next step after that. And he contrasts that with Moshe, who he says is grounded in Yeshuv Hada'at, right? This idea of literally, or it means like, or idiomatically, I should say, it means equanimity. But literally, it also comes from a settled sort of mindset, a settled thought. And he says that this equanimity allows for insight and a more mindful sort of reaction or action on the part of Moshe. And furthermore, he connects this Yeshuv Hada'at specifically to Shabbat and to the stillness that comes with Shabbat practice, and that comes with that regular sort of discipline of Shabbat. So I wanted to work a little bit today and give you some real time for some meditation and even potentially some contemplation. So what I'm going to suggest is we're going to begin with a meditation that anchors us in the breath. And then if you'd like, I'm going to give you the option to work a little bit on contemplating a question or issue that might arise for you. So just to begin, I'm going to ask you to come into a meditative posture, whatever that might be for you. So it might be seated on the floor or in a chair. Wherever it is you want to still your body and allow yourself to be relaxed, yet also upright and alert. Perhaps closing your eyes or simply allowing your gaze to drop. Stilling your body so that you can turn your attention towards your breath. Noticing the movement of the breath in your body, and perhaps finding a particular point on your body where the movement of the breath is particularly clear and palpable. Using that as an anchor. And if you find that your mind begins to spin a narrative or lose track of your breath because you've been swept off into the stream of thought, that's all right. Just gently lead your attention back to the breath. However many times it takes, it's all right. Once you have attention is securely anchored in the breath and the flow of your thoughts has begun to settle down, if you wish, you can allow a question or challenge to rise up in your consciousness. It shouldn't be anything too big or overwhelming for now. Perhaps just a little unresolved question or a daily issue that arises. And without trying to analyze or fix it, you can simply allow yourself to explore the emotional texture and sensation that is present with this query. Just allowing yourself to gently explore what is there in your response. What feelings arise without judgment, without a need to fix or wipe away, just seeing what's there. And if you prefer, you can also just stay with the grounding practice of the attention to your breath. And in these last few moments, you can simply release your contemplation and return your attention to your breath, recentering yourself in your body and in the movement of the breath as waves through your body. And to finish, I'll ring a bell.
Thank you so much, Heather. Friends, we seal our practice as we always do with Mourner's Kaddish, inviting those of you who are in mourning, observing a yard site, or if you're carrying any grief, to share the name or names of anyone you'd like to include in the chat box, and to join me in rising, either in body or in spirit, for Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Me'amad, Yitrach, Ve'amichu, Chayei Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalah, Karib, Yimru, Amen. Yehesh Shmei Rabba, Lam Lameh Hamayah, Yitzbarach, Yishtabach, Mitraman, Vitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitalel, Shmei Luksha, Le'elam Ekol Miran Ba'ama Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Shemaya Yehesh Lama Rabba Min Israel Aleinu Ose Shalom Imru Amen Leinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Amen Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. Friends, as always, thank you for joining us today for our practice. Thanks to Cantor Heather Batchelor. I'm going to put Heather's website in the chat box for those who would like to learn more about her offerings and her teaching and her music. And of course, we want to thank Dorian Goldman for so generously sponsoring this week of practice in loving memory of our beloved Rabbi Rachel Cowan. And thanks to ID Stein, as always, for handling our tech support and holding this space with skill and grace. And for those of you who are leaving us now, and hope to see you tomorrow for practice. We'll be led in practice tomorrow by Sabrina Sojourner, who will lead us second day of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It's actually the first day of Tammuz tomorrow. It's the 30th day of Sivan today, but a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. And we'll sit into Shabbat together at the same time, 12:30 tomorrow. And of course, you're invited to join us for practice next week as well, anytime, 12:30 on. Recording of this session and all previous meditations and yoga and Torah study, again, all on the YouTube channel. And as well, there is on our YouTube channel, you'll see there is the recording of yesterday's question and answer session that Rabbi Sam Feinsmith held for those who participated in his week-long series on standing or sitting at Sinai. So if you missed the Q&A and would like to watch the recording, that's on our YouTube channel as well. So take a look at that. And for those who are leaving us, we hope you're safe and well. We hope we'll see you tomorrow for practice with Sabrina Sojourner. If you have a question for Cantor Heather Batchelor about today's teaching, please put it in the chat box and preface it by writing question if possible. Heather, that was really so lovely. And, I will say it was for me at least, very much enhanced by just seeing the green and also seeing the movement of the leaves behind you. Like, I went from closing my eyes to kind of opening my eyes, and I found myself just kind of taking in the field of green and the birds. Yes. Thank you, Cheryl and Robert. Listening to the birds, it was really soothing. And I think that the juxtaposition of such a soothing sit, at least my experience today, people of course had their own experience, juxtaposed against Korach, which, you sort of began by saying that it's a tough Torah portion in the sense that there's a lot of disturbing words and actions. Maybe it's the most agitated Torah portion, right? That, or perhaps Ki Tisa, the building of the golden calf, when basically all hell breaks loose. But here, all hell breaks loose. Of course, all hell breaks loose pretty often in the book of Numbers. But this is one of the biggies. Everyone gets angry. Korach and his gang are angry. Moshe and Aaron are angry. God is angry. There's a lot of agitation. And I just felt like the spaciousness, the tone, the spaciousness today was just such a great counterpoint to that agitation. And it made me think, oh, if only they could have just sat for, when Korach brought his complaint to Moshe, he could have just said, why don't we go sit for about, why don't we go on a retreat and just sit for a little bit? And then let's talk, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because the way that the Shem Yishmael describes the difference between the two of them, he doesn't say that Korach didn't have a desire. He says that Korach has this passion to serve Hashem, but that he doesn't have this grounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way he described it, it made me think of sort of the Jedi Knight, or sort of the Zen master who, if you think of the classic old, this dates me, but the Kung Fu TV series, but the idea of someone who, even at the moment that they're in conflict, can still bring that grounding, right? And it's interesting because I looked back at the parsha, and the thing that's perhaps telling in the interaction between Moshe and Korach is that when Korach confronts Moshe, Moshe doesn't speak immediately. It first says that he falls to the ground, like face to the ground. And I think, that can be interpreted a number of ways, but certainly it seems like he's allowing it to sort of
Mm-hmm.
hit him or soak in
Mm-hmm.
before he feels a need to respond
Yeah.
immediately. And I think so often we just feel this need to immediately respond when we're confronted or we feel threatened.
That's a really wonderful point. And I also, so let's take, well, there's a really good question from Lori that I want to bring in.
Yeah.
But just to stick for a moment with that Shem Shmuel understanding of Korach as this kind of, ungrounded energy, right? Ungrounded passion. Um, you know, that's the kind of agitation I'm talking about, like, um, and that we all bring into this practice. And then I suppose that one way of understanding the practice is to, the word grounding is used pretty often by Jewish mindfulness meditation teachers in general. Might be interesting to explore what we mean by that. When we think about grounding, like you think about also with electricity, to ground something so that whatever happens, and maybe here is someone here is an expert in this, that energy is dissipated or contained or filtered in a way that neutralizes it in some way. And so I want to connect that with Lori's question, which is, she wrote, though today's sit was grounding, challenging, productive, and lovely, it's the moments or minutes after the bell has rung, after the vibration of the bell travels through my body and mind after the meditation, that is total relaxation and peace for me. Why is this? How can I bring this earlier into the meditation? That's what I was thinking about the grounding, like, this sort of like the bell and the vibrations of the bell representing that energy, and then it dissipates. Like, there's one thing, we don't end when you ring the bell and say, okay, the bell rang. No,
Yeah.
the bell rings, and the purpose of the bell is then to, like, go through this process of hearing the vibrations and sound of the bell until it completely fades away. And it does induce, at least for me, and probably sounds like for others, it really shifts things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think you're getting into something related to sound. And certainly in the Hasidic tradition, there's a whole genre of nigunim that specifically they're called dveikus nigunim. And their purpose is to sort of encourage us to cleave to Hashem, right? And there are practices where those dveikus nigunim are used to ground. So, for instance, in certain dance practices in the Hasidic tradition, they'll be preceded by a long period of using dveikus nigunim to ground that dance so that the dance can truly be something transformative and spiritual and not kind of a performance, as we would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly certain that I haven't gone off into some tangent that's totally unrelated to what you asked, but maybe I'll try to pull it back. There
Well, let me interrupt for a
sound,
second. So that,
yeah, I
so,
get.
so,
Let me,
so
if you don't, I'll
yeah,
say
yeah, go
just
ahead.
that sound can be used that way. And I think that's
Mhm.
the point about these using a nigun that way. Or, for instance, some people practice with intermittent bells, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that there's a bell that sounds actually intermittently, maybe every 5 or 10 minutes while they're meditating, just because that sound allows them to reground in their body and in their felt sensation.
Mm. I was going to ask you about those nigunim, the dveikut cleaving nigunim. Are those tend to be energetic, like the upbeat kind of nigun,
No,
or the
they
more
usually
meditative?
they actually are meditative. They tend to be. It's a very meditative genre of nigunim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So interesting. Um, just looking through here, there's a lot of. So I mean, it was suggesting to me that the idea of using the bells intermittently in some way actually could be quite helpful, um, especially as like beginning with the bell and ending with the bell, or this is a question because for as Jewish mindfulness meditation, I could put this question to you because you're a Cantor and a Jewish mindfulness meditation teacher. What would be the difference, if any, between using a nigun, using the voice, using the sound, versus using a bell to serve that purpose? What do you think? Would you have a preference or one way or another?
I don't think that there's a really a question of preference. I mean, I think that preference um, is for the person who's
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it. But I do think that a nigun, there's much more of a physical involvement
Mm-hmm.
with it,
Mm-hmm.
because you're producing the sound in your own body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, um, on the other hand, with a bell, you're not producing the sound, so you're allowed to, so you can just um, experience it passively in a sense, right? Um, I wouldn't say that
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of preference really. But a nigun also can sometimes have its own trajectory that it sort of brings you on, right? So Lori asked about singing a bit of nigun. It was really funny because that came out as a big gun. I'm pretty sure she meant a nigun. Um, so this is a nigun actually. Okay, so I'll use it. I'm just going to use what comes to mind. This is a Karlbach nigun, an old one that I learned from Nehemiah Poland. It's uh, I because it's Karlbach and doesn't necessarily come from a dynastic Hasidic tradition. I don't know that it's technically classified as a Dveikus Nigun, but to me, when I think of Dveikus Nigun, this one comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, ya da da, ya da da, ya da da. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. So yeah, something like that. Yes. Someone asked, Devakis Niggin spelled like that. Yes, that would be it. And yes, it's the same word in modern or
Hebrew.
Sephardic Hebrew as Dvekut. Yes.
Thank you so much, Heather. It was beautiful. Friends, I will end here. I invite you to join us again tomorrow with Sabrina Sojourner and hope to see you then. Thanks, Adi. Thank you so much, as always, Heather. And thanks to Dorian Goldman for sponsoring our sit. And most of all, thanks to all of you for your amazing devotion and dedication to this practice and to this circle of practice. And hope to see you tomorrow.